Hello everybody, version 2.3 of GameMaker Studio 2 has arrived, and that means I've got a bit of a preamble to do. At the start of this video, I'll put up a timer on screen so you can skip ahead just to the actual code stuff. But importantly, 2.3 has arrived, and with it, we've got new asset browser instead of the resource tree, and that's a bit different. A bunch of our editors have changed, some of our resource types have fundamentally changed, like scripts. There's a ton of new GML changes. Some people have suggested this feels more like a GameMaker Studio 3. Like it would have been valid for them to name it that. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I can definitely see where they're coming from. Luckily for us in this series, our code up until this point, till this episode, should work absolutely fine. You should find that you can, import the project if you've been following my tutorials closely, and it's not going to have any issues coming to 2.3. But with that out of the way, we are going to carry on, and this is episode 27, and in this episode, we're going to look at actually damaging our little slime boy over here, okay? We can swing at him, he jumps at us, but neither of us can interact with each other in this sad, cold world, okay? So we're going to make it so that this attack actually hits the enemy, gets hurt, and if he gets hurt enough, he'll explode into a shower of slime. Okay, so originally I wasn't going to do this, but I did decide that I think from this point onwards, I will be trying to use 2.3 methodology and so on in this series, just to do the best we can to sort of bring people up to speed. We're not going to go back and refactor everything with that may as well just be starting the series from scratch, right? There's a whole bunch of new ways to organize things and do things. And we're just going to apply it going forwards, okay? We're not going to worry too much about refactoring or changing anything. A few things I will here or there, and I'll point them out as I do, like we're going to merge some scripts together in this episode and so on, and you'll see. Anyway, the first thing I want to do before anything else is to do with the new asset browser. So the asset browser by default will just order everything in the project alphabetically. You see animation curves at the top, timelines at the bottom. We can just get rid of timelines. We're never going to need that folder, right? Get rid of timelines. And you can do that now. These are all just folders, okay? They're not like just groups anymore. You can name them what you want, organize them however you want. But you might not be used to the order, even though you've got all the same folders here that you're used to having. You might not be used to them being in alphabetical order, so what you can do is go to sort filter and just go to custom order instead of A to Z. And then you'll find with an already existing project, it'll order it like how it used to be. So you've got sprites up at the top here, you got scripts, and then your objects, then your rooms. Just everything is in kind of the order you're probably familiar with. So I would recommend doing that. Once we've done that, we want to bring in a couple of new sprites for this episode. One thing you'll notice is you can no longer right-click on sprites and hit add sprite from images or anything like that. You have to go to create, add sprite. But what you can do, and the reason you can't do that is because it's just a generic folder now, right? It doesn't actually have anything to do with sprites. You could rename this to whatever you wanted. It just happens to have our sprites in it. What you can do though is right click on a sprite that already exists, and then you have create sprite. And you also have the create sprite from images button. So we're going to click that. I'm going to go to the folder with all of our ARPG assets, available from the description, as you know. And then I'm going to bring in slime die strip 6. This is a little animation where the slime just explodes. We'll change the FPS to 15. There we go. And I'm going to move the origin to somewhere around here. Just like 1 pixel further forward than where we usually align it. It's just like right in the middle there. So 913. I think that's right. Yeah, so it's normally like in line with this eye. But now it's like in the middle here. And we're going to call it slime die. You'll notice that the origin looks a little bit different now. If I zoom in here. You see it's kind of in the top left of the pixel. Like the pixel is like here, right? It might be a little hard to tell. But you can see the origin is in the top left of the pixel rather than on the pixel itself. And that's technically more accurate, okay? Your origin doesn't necessarily refer to a pixel, but it's like the top left of a particular pixel. Like if I position it like here, look, you can see So in the top left of that pixel, top left of this pixel, and so on, right? Okay, it's just slightly more accurate. You still move it around the same way, just click and drag it around. It's all the same, okay? Okay, with that sprite added, we're going to add another sprite and create sprite from images, slime hurt, which is just that first frame of the die animation. It's exactly the same. Put the origin in the same place, slime die. Oh, sorry. Slime hurt is this one. This is just the frame we're going to go to when the slime has been hit by an attack, okay? Then I can just close that workspace in order to close those down super easily, make a new workspace, close everything else, and we're back to nothing. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is come to our p-enemy object, our root object for all our enemies, and I'm going to add a new variable definition at the bottom here, enemy HP. Okay, I'll just zoom in on that so you can see. Enemy HP, it's a real, and we're going to set its default to be 1. Okay? Then we're going to come to our slime object. You'll see it's inherited that value. If I come down here, yeah, we've got enemy HP 1. I'm going to click the edit button, set that to be 50. Okay, way too large of a number, but it's just there so that we have plenty of time to see our enemy being hit and we can just confirm it's all working. Maybe set it to something like 20 or 10 or whatever you want it to be really after this tutorial, because we're just going to set it to a big value here so that we can see it working. Okay, then we're not quite done with those slimes, so I'm going to come to the create event. And in here we're going to add a couple of new states for this slime. I'm going to write enemy script enemy state dot hurt. That's going to equal slime hurt. Enemy script enemy state die. It's going to equal slime die. Okay, we obviously haven't made those functions yet. We'll get to that. And then, of course, we want to list those sprites we want to use. Oh, I didn't put the semicolon on either. No, now we have. Anyway, I'm going to write SPR die is going to equal S slime die. SPR hurt equals S slime hurts. Alright, okay, with our basic setup done, we're now going to make some modifications to our player's attack code. So if you come to scripts and in player attacks, over here I've got attack slash, attack spin, and calc attack. And you'll remember these as our different functions. Our attack spin was blank, it was just to demonstrate, and calc attack. So attack slash is like performing that slash animation. Calc attack is working out if we've hit anything. Now, because of 2.3, every script is not necessarily a function, they just contain functions. So now when I call attack slash somewhere in the game, I'm not actually referring to this script, I'm referring to this function that we declared in the script. Okay, what that means is we can now actually, say I can take this code from attack spin, cut it, and paste it in here. Okay, so just Control X and Control V. Now we have two functions in this script, and we can still call attack spin from anywhere in our game. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to merge all three of these together into one script, and then I'm going to rename the script player attack. Oh, no space. Attack funcs. Okay, funcs standing for functions. I suppose I could just write functions. Player attack functions, and then I can just delete these other two. And then now we just have a single script that contains all three of our functions that have anything to do with the player attacking. And we've got code folding now as well, so we can just fold these away if we want to. You can also press like Control U to unfold everything, Control M to fold everything. It can be quite useful. That does also fold all the nested ones as well though, so just be a little bit careful with that. Although the one other thing I'm going to change here is by default these functions put the curly brace on the same line. That to me, I hate that. You can leave it that way if you want, it makes no difference, but for me, the function declaration, the curly brace should always be on the next line for me. Just like it's consistent with how I do curly braces throughout my code. That's my style. For why it was GameMaker style as well. I don't know why they've decided to change with just that this one particular update. I guess they're going full JavaScript. I don't know, but I prefer it when it's on the next line. So generally as we go along, I'll be updating them so that they're like that. Anyway, with all these merged together now, it all still works the same way. As I said, they can be called from anywhere. Calc attack is the function that we're interested in changing, okay? And one thing to be aware of here is you might be thinking, seeing these new, like, how these functions are now declared within scripts as opposed to scripts just being the functions. Does script execute still work? And the answer is yes, it still works in the exact same way. Only it's kind of better thought of as function execute, really. Obviously, changing the name of that would cause a lot of problems, and there is still a sort of reason why it's called script execute. This will still basically work the same way, only instead of referring to a specific script, it's referring to a function within a script, okay? So it still works the same, you know, it's the same as if I wrote attack spin. You can see that turns yellow. It recognizes I have a function declared somewhere called that. Like writing script execute and passing in a variable with a function name will still call that function. However, it only works with functions declared in scripts. So, you know, there's a way to think of it if you're wondering why it's still called like script execute, right? Still only works with functions declared inside of scripts, because they're the only ones that actually get an ID, so that, you know, you can refer to them as just like the function itself, rather than calling the function when you write it. Anyway, so what we're going to do here, you might think, well, the way we're going to handle hitting enemies is to make them execute a script, or rather execute a function. That's going to be hard. Execute a function when they get hit by this attack, the same way we do everything else, right? Well, actually, we're going to do something a bit different, and that's because when we hit an enemy, we actually want to pass across some values from the player, like how much damage we want to deal, maybe based on the attack we're doing, and, you know, how much knockback to do and that kind of thing. Okay, we've got information from the player that we want to pass in. So in order to do that, we're going to actually write a kind of an exception here for if we're dealing with hitting an enemy. So I'm going to write if object is ancestor. What this does is it will check an object to see if it is a child of a particular parent object. So by doing if object is ancestor, object index, and p enemy, remember we're withing the enemy object here, the slime object even. We're going to check to see if that object index has p enemy in its parents somewhere, like all the way up as well, I think. So I think if we did p entity, that would also come back true, and so on. Okay, but we want to see if the thing we have just hit is an enemy. Then we're going to call a new function that we haven't written yet called hurt enemy, and we're going to pass in a whole bunch of values. We're going to pass in ID, the name of the instance ID of the enemy that we actually want to damage. We are going to pass in. I know you might argue, well, we don't need to do that because we're withing it, but we might want to use this elsewhere. Okay, so we're also going to pass in 5, which is going to be the damage that we want to deal. I'm going to pass in other.id, which is going to get the instance ID of the player, who's the person dealing the attack, and also an amount of knockback that we want to do as well, which I'm going to say is 10. How all that works will become clear when we actually write this function, okay? And then I'm going to write else, and then just bring this in line, because if that's not true, then we just want to perform our usual, perform entity hit script. Now, normally this would be where I'd say we have to make a new script called hurt enemy, right? But we don't. We just go to the bottom here, outside of the function, and write function hurt enemy, open bracket. And we could also close the bracket here, and continue to do a function how we normally would, using argument 0, argument 1, and so on, referring to these like 4 things we've passed through. That still works exactly the same, okay? And things like argument count, and arguments through array, and that kind of thing all still work and still have their place and uses. So if you want to keep doing stuff like that, you can. But what we can do now is actually just name these arguments in line. So I'm going to name them enemy. damage, source, and knockback. Okay, and then within this function, if we refer to enemy, we're referring to that argument. You see it's turned yellow, like they become variables local to this function. Since they are local, I'm still doing my usual style of putting an underscore at the start. That's how I like to do local variables, although I notice I actually don't do it a lot. Or I guess if I do it, I'm not very consistent with it because I haven't done it a bunch here. Oh well, bad Sean, not very good at programming. What can I say? Anyway, what we want to do in here, since we've written those 4 things now, whenever we call this, you can see it already says down here at the bottom, look, that now does what we used to have to write those big long comments for, where we would write at arg and at desk and all that kind of stuff. We can now just write hurt enemy, and it fills in this at the bottom here with the arguments that we need to put in whenever we call it. Pretty useful. Cool. So now that we have this, I'm going to write with enemy, which, as I say, normally would be with argument 0, but now we can name them. Pretty handy. So with the enemy that we've just hit, or I suppose it'd be with target really, but whatever. If state does not equal enemy state dot die. So assuming this enemy isn't already dying, we don't want to be able to hit them again when they're dying. We just want to leave them to it. So assuming they are not already dying or dead, enemy HP minus equal damage. Okay, just take whatever is in this value and just reduce enemy HP by it. And flash equals 1, because you'll remember that enemies are actually a child of P entity, and P entity has the ability to flash. So if I go to O slime, you can see it's inheriting the draw event all the way back from P entity, because I don't think P enemy has one. And you go to, P enemy doesn't have one, and it just inherits that from P entity. So that's like from P entity to P enemy all the way through to O slime, we have the functionality to do a flash, which is really useful. We can just set that to 1, and we can just make a thing flash. Very, very handy. Then I'm going to say hurt or dead. If enemy HP is less than or equal to 0, then we want them to die because we've just killed them. So state equals enemy state dot die. You could argue there should probably be like a general check in the enemy to see like if it died from, like, it should check by itself rather than only checking when we deal it damage. But I think if you're reasonably careful with it, you can just only check when you actually perform a change to something's hit points in some way. That's the only real time you need to check if something should die, right? So assuming there's not going to be a million different functions that in a million different ways cause the enemy to lose hit points, and that most of the time we do it will be through the hurt enemy function, I think it's okay to just do that check here. So if enemy HP less than or equal to 0, set it to the die state, else if state does not equal enemy state dot hurt state previous, which is a variable we set up in our enemy that we haven't actually I don't think we've actually used yet. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we haven't actually used that yet. This is what we set it up for, equals state. Okay, and then state equals enemy state dot hurt. And what that does is we load state previous with our current state before going into the hurt state, so that when we finish the hurt state and we finish like the enemy going ow or whatever, it just goes back into whatever state it was currently in. Okay, that's up to you. You might prefer to just say like, oh, when it finishes the hurt state, just go back into the free state or whatever, but we might want to remember if it was like aggro to the player and chasing them and that kind of thing. So for me, I'm just sending it back to wherever it was. Okay, that's the end of that if statement. The other thing we want to do is set image index to be 0, so that we don't go into any weird unexpected part of the animation when we shift to the hurt state or the die state as appropriate. Then if knockback does not equal 0, because it's possible we just do an attack with 0 knockback, but assuming we haven't, var knock direction is going to equal point direction. Hang on, let me make this a bit bigger. Point direction x, y, open bracket, source dot x, source dot y, close bracket, semicolon. So that just gets the direction between wherever this enemy is and wherever our wherever the damage came from. Then we can do x2 equals x minus length the x knockback. If I can type today, knockback, knock direction. And then y2 equals y minus length the y. The same again, knockback, knock direction. And what we've done there is by subtracting that, we end up going away from the direction between x, y, and the source x and y. I suppose you could just do it the other way around, so it's like source x, source y to x and y, and then it's like x plus length x and y plus length, whichever way makes more sense for you. Just do it either way. It doesn't make a difference. All right. Okay, so let's just sort of zoom out now. So this is our new function, which we can just fold up with all the others, and these are our player attack functions that we've got. Now I want to do something similar with our slime. Let me just make this a bit bigger so we can see what's going on here. So we've got these 3 slime scripts at the moment, which I think again will benefit just from becoming 1. So I'll just make a new script called slime functions. Okay, you can see when you make a new one, it creates like a basic function for you here, the same name as the script, which is, you know, useful if you want to just do stuff the way you used to and, you know, follow all the tutorials. You just put the stuff in here and pretend that the video you're watching also has these bits around it, okay? And it'll work just fine. But I'm gonna get rid of all that here because I'm literally just gonna copy and paste slime wander into here. Putting that on the next line, fold it up. I said fold it up. Slime wander close. Go to slime chase, copy that, put that in here, put that on the next line, and get slime attack, copy that, put that in here, fold that, put that in here, move brace to the next line. Wait for the folding to show up and then fold it away. Cool, and now I can just delete all 3 of our slime functions because they exist in this one script now, okay? All right, so with all those combined, I'll press F12, fold all those things away, get our code editor nice and big, and I'm gonna make a new function called slime hurts, okay? I'm also gonna make one underneath called slime die, as that's one we'll actually need for later as well. We'll just make that blank for now. And in slime hurt is where we're going to be doing our work. So in slime hurt, we want to first of all set our sprite index to be SPR hertz. I'm going to do var distance to go equals point distance x, y, x2, y2. Okay, so we have that destination from when we got sent to this state in the first place, and we're going to work out how far it is from where we currently are. Then I'm going to write if distance to go is greater than enemy speed, then if that's true, image speed is going to equal 1.0. And you'll remember how this works. This is just checking that we've got further to go than we would move on this frame, all right? So assuming that's true, image speed is 1, so we're animating as normal. dir, our direction, is going to equal point direction x, y, x2, y2. H speed is going to equal length the x, enemy speed the, and v speed is going to equal length the y, enemy speed the. Remember, as always, to be very careful with these functions and to make sure you don't write length the x twice, for example. Very, very common mistake of mine. So I expect a lot of people also make that particular error. If h speed is not 0, then image x scale equals minus sign h speed. That's just to make sure we face the correct way, and we're going to put negative on it because I With the case of this sprite, we actually kind of want to face the opposite direction to which way we're moving, right? Because like you remember the sprite is like a little grimacing face, and we kind of want that to face forward. If we're moving, if we're bouncing left, then we want the sprite to face right, and if we're bouncing towards the right, we want the sprite to face left because we're moving backwards, right? So that's why we put that negative on there. I suppose the other way you can do it is just make the sprite flip, but I prefer doing it this way. And then collide and move. If there's a collision, then stop, knock back. If enemy tile collision, because I think you'll remember if we actually go to this by middle clicking, it returns true or false, depending on whether or not there actually was a collision. So by just doing if enemy tile collision, x2 equals x, y2 equals y. So if we collide with anything, then our new goal is to get to wherever we currently are. All right. And then that's all fine. If we do not have a distance to go that is greater than our speed, so like we would overshoot, we want to say x simply equals x2, y equals y2, so we just go straight to our goal, since to move by our speed would mean we would overshoot it. Then if state previous does not equal enemy state dot attack, state equals state previous, else state equals enemy state dot chase. Okay, that means we don't want to go immediately back into the attack state if that's the state we were in, because the attack state is the state where we're actually doing the little jump. Going immediately back to that state could cause some weird issues, okay, if that was our previous state. If that was our previous state, then the state we want to go to is our chase state, where we were chasing after the player, because if we were attacking, we can assume we were aggroed and everything, right? So we just want to go to that. Otherwise, just go back to whatever state we were in before, which may well have been the chase state. In fact, most likely was, since we're really close to the enemy, right? Cool. That's all we actually need for the hurt state there. That's everything. I'll just zoom out and you can get a whole picture of that particular state function. I think now with a slime die in place that doesn't do anything yet, I think we can actually run this and see this in action. So if I just aggro him, we can now hit him. Yeah. And you can see him flash and get knocked back. Eventually we'll hit him enough times that he runs out of HP. Yeah, and he just enters into the die state, which is a state where he's doing literally nothing, but just continuing to animate, right? Because his image speed is presumably 1. But yeah, you can see all the attack stuff we've done there working. Now that is 33 minutes of footage, so I am actually going to wrap up this episode here. I don't know what it'll end up being total length when I edit it together, but I feel like I've done quite enough for one episode here, and it's a reasonable place to end it, where we can actually run up to this thing and actually start hitting it and dealing meaningful damage to it. Next episode we can just finish off this die thing, and that's a nice compact thing to put into one episode as well, and it means the next episode will come together a little bit quicker, so I think I'm gonna do it that way. All right, as I said, I'm gonna push to get episodes out as soon as I can to finish off this enemy stuff, making the enemy die, making the enemy hit us, and so on, getting our health on the screen, that kind of thing, just to round off what we've got here. And there's a few things I want to get, I really do want to get done before I consider this anywhere close to being something I can wrap up. But as I said, there is going to be a period now where I focus less on just doing this series, okay? The main thing is I just want to make other stuff. I need to update old content, and I need to do 2.3 relevant stuff. There's all kinds of things I need to do, so I'm going to be doing that. that doesn't mean this series is dead by any means. I just don't want to make any absurd promises with it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting me. There's people who do on Patreon. The names will be up in a moment. And I'll catch you all next time. A huge thanks to all my Patreon supporters, and a huge special thank you, in particular, and in no particular order, to the following: Azrael Studios, Andy Brown, Starshock12, Cookie Draggy, Rachel Stewart, John C., Team D, Mr. Oars, Jordan Hake, Dalvor, Vacants, Phil Keen, Pong Pong Zhao, Andrew Gilbert, Michael Capone, The Holtzman Effect, Kaiser Ho, Justin Adega, Alex Schenkel, Troy Mera, Boris the Wizard, Zach Collett, Figgy, Cabbage Pants, Joran Pater, Leo, Scott Matthews, Mark Burgess, Samir Nyailegaglow, Rene Dam, Rupinder, Hare, Jason, James L. Anderson, James Siggins, Hyungjin, Relentless Rex, Bertie T, Daka Dondigo, Mike KB, Robert Churches, Matthew Gardner, Kimpo, Bowser the Dog, Max M, and Zephyr Flame. Thank you all ever so much, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you all next time.